Welcome to AI Smart Marketing. Today we have Kendra Stowe, who has been a content marketer for the last 10 years, and she's got experience with global agency work and global brand work. And Kendra's going to talk to us about how she uses AI to save time while maintaining the integrity of the content that she's producing. So Kendra, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Nicole and Katie. I am so excited to be here and talk to you all about AI and how I'm using it. But like Nicole said, I have a global agency background, and I think that's when AI first started, hitting the market. We were seeing a lot of that generative AI with Gmail and stuff like that. So really, that's when I first got introduced to the concept of AI. And then I started leading these global clients and content strategies. And I was finding that AI was really useful in terms of, number one, generating topics, number two, coming up with content in general from like a copywriting perspective that was helping us, to actually write those social posts and obviously tweak the language. And like you said, Nicole, I think maintaining that integrity just in general, and making sure that AI goes along with your brand tone and voice. So I started to really use it essentially with ChatGPT when I jumped into that whole sphere, especially with LegalZoom. And when I was at LegalZoom, I was leading the social media and content strategy in general. And we actually performed an entire quarter's worth of tests where we wanted to see how copy from AI was performing against a copywriter's copy. And that was just something that we were interested in seeing, if we got more engagements, if we got more impressions, and just interaction in general from the copy. So that's how I really started using it. And then from there, just really took off and started to use it to generate topic ideas, to, use it for just editorial planning in general. So for example, LegalZoom helped people establish small businesses. So just there's a lot of regulatory aspects around starting a small business and, what entrepreneurs need to know. So there's a lot of ins and outs in that space where we essentially would use it to really educate people and use AI to, number one, fact check everything that we were posting out there and obviously get it approved by legal and stuff like that, but also just really help us generate those topics like, okay, what are small business owners wanting to know? What are people, where are there gaps in education that we need to inform and become that like thought leader? So really helping use AI in that way where we worked alongside each other to really basically make the content the best it could be using AI in general.
Okay, when you were doing research on the topics, what tools did you use?
Yeah, so I used a lot of ChatGPT in general, and we also used, I don't know if you've ever heard of Google's or Answer the Public, I'm sorry. So Answer the Public is a great tool just in general, where that would really help me with, what topics. I would just put in a few keywords, and obviously AI would aggregate all of the questions that people are asking around that topic. So that was something really big for me, and I still use it all the time. But just in general, everything from, especially like I said, with the small business owner topics, what are people wanting to know about how to get a small business loan, or what do they need to know about like what are their registered agent requirements in their state in particular. So it was really informative in that way, where we could see the volume of what people were asking. And I advocate for that tool all the time, but just really, like I said, being able to see the volume of that type of tool and then build your topics and editorial around that in general.
Excellent. And then do you use, so then how are some of the other ways that you use AI, and do you use any other AI tools?
Yeah, so like I said, I think ChatGPT has been my biggest right hand lately, but I've been playing around with Google's Bard lately as well. And I found that to be really effective, just in, and it's interesting. I love ChatGPT just upon like the building on the topics and how you can always go back and be like, okay, you gave me this answer, now let's mirror this exactly in just like a different format. So I found that to be really helpful as well. But another way that I'm really using it is for SEO optimization. And I think that is just a critical tool in general, or a critical way to use AI in general, because it's revealing those insights for, number one, how the keywords that people are using. But number two, it's also just helping with, the copy in general to make sure that all of your content is SEO optimized. And I think AI, and I've seen a lot of random things where they say that like AI will completely replace SEO in the future, which is just an interesting topic. But I think right now they're working really well hand in hand to make sure that all of your content is SEO optimized. But I can definitely show how I would do that just in general, if you would like.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
And we love Answer the Public too. That's something that we always try to get people on because it puts the keywords in the usable formats, like what are people actually asking?
Exactly. And then, just building from there, and being able to build out your content and editorial or whatever you're doing based on what people are asking.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is basically everything this is, for example, how I would go step by step on building out content for SEO purposes. So number one, like I said, let's start out with those keywords. So we want to use the keywords. We maybe have already identified keywords for our small business or for our business in general or your brand, or maybe, you're not sure what keywords you want to use. So this is where I really would use ChatGPT. So for example, prompt, give me an example of, or give me a list of related keywords to small businesses. So for example, we already know that LegalZoom dealt with small businesses. So we would be wanting to build upon that topic of small businesses. So then I have my whole list of, keywords that I would use in that space, for example. And then this is where I would take it a step further from the content marketing perspective to go ahead and build content series around certain topics. So especially this was really big because we wanted to promote our services and products while also telling, those stories of small business owners and everything like that. So really seeing how we could build in this educational component along with the keywords in general to really help and enhance our SEO strategy from a social perspective, because as we know, AI and social are becoming really more of like a search engine thing in general with the help of AI. So I think that just using certain keywords to turn this into like content series was really helpful. So for example, like I said, the prompt here, I need a few ideas for content series that are built around the topic of small businesses. I need you to include some SEO friendly keywords that I could use to show up in search. And then so helpful, we are seeing, ChatGPT and AI come back with small business success stories, and then it really gives you those ideas for that. So that's what I love about AI, like you said, maintaining the integrity, going back to that point. I think that this is so nice because you're taking these ideas and then you're making them your own. And I know there's a lot of, word for word copy that is easy to replicate and use, but in general, where I find it most helpful is generating these ideas. So for example, I could think of like a small business success story or maybe a small business financing option mini series now because I have this idea. And then it's including those keywords that we should use. So like the loans and the grants and the crowdfunding, the small business financing, where it's building in those keywords and SEO optimization into that content strategy in general. So after that, then obviously we could create certain keywords lists around search intent. So give me a list of keywords that people would use relating to starting a small business in Georgia, for example. So getting really specific. This is something that I love too. I think that this really helps with localization for businesses in general, or just companies. I think that there's a lot of companies who are wondering, where people are looking at things, what people are searching for based on states, or I know there's a lot of different things related to products in general from a regional perspective. So I think this is where that really comes in handy from the localization perspective. And then you can see here, these are some keywords that people may use in Georgia in general. So how to get a Georgia tax ID number, your Georgia's business license, small business grants. And then from there, this is where it really gets, more personalized down to like actual strategy in terms of social in general, but generating headlines, generating social media copy, generating ad copy. So I love it because I would always use it specifically for certain platforms. And I think AI is actually really good with identifying platforms in general, how people are talking on certain platforms. So for example, an SEO optimized caption using 3 hashtags that use the keywords for small businesses. And so I wanted to caveat this with like, we would never take the AI generated copy and just copy and paste it. We would always still add brand tone and voice on after that. But I think it's a great building block to start with. And, then, like I said, you have those SEO optimized keywords in there where you can keep those and maintain that as like the bones of it, and then build upon it basically in your own language. And then we would also use this in particular for headlines for ad copy. So I was also in charge of doing all of our social media ads in general, and A/B testing is something that was really critical at the time. And, I think a lot of companies today are doing that A/B testing and just really using those headlines and testing which we're getting more clicks on, we're getting more video views on and stuff like that, but really getting those ideas where, I think as people, we can only come up with so many ways to say like, start your small business today, where there's things in there that we were using with AI and those small business or the small business keywords that are just in a new and creative way that you may not have thought about. And like I said, moving on, sample prompt for ad copy, for Google ads in general. I think, that's something that a lot of businesses, and I've just worked on in the past, where you only have 50 characters to do that headline. So it's like, okay, how do I make this work in 50 characters that grabs attention and that, will actually perform well? So I found that that's something that AI does a really great job at, is just like taking your ideas that you already have and shortening them and spitting them out. So that is definitely just kind of optimal process in general for everything. And then, content optimization. So I think, like I said, just from an SEO perspective, we would always test and learn, and we would always be optimizing in general, everything that we did. So I would always test it and be like, hey, here's an email campaign that we recently wrote. Can you go ahead and optimize it for SEO and add in those keywords, and then let me know what I should change? And without fail, every single time, AI is, spitting back like a cleaner, more optimized version of what I was doing essentially. And then also that link building, which I think is really critical. That's kind of ties the whole package together. So LegalZoom was really big with affiliate marketing in general. So give me a few relevant websites to LegalZoom, for example, that I can pitch backlinks to enhance my SEO. Make sure to leave out my competitors. I just love that there's so many different things where you can tell it specifically, AI in general, you can tell specifically what you want it to leave out, what you want it to include, or maybe analyze my competitors. And this is obviously just one example using ChatGPT, but there's so many AI tools that I think will just really enhance kind of how we work and how we come up with strategies and how we really make informed business decisions in the future.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, that was all those were really great examples. So
yeah.
Did you have any questions or comments, Andrea?
No, it's just really refreshing to see someone using it in a similar way that we are. So, and knowing that there's that whole source of truth and the discernment and the human part that is still necessary, and not giving all the power to the AI itself, that, you take what it gives you and you go from there, which is what we are trying to stress to people. Don't just take it and put it out there, take it and put your, take it the rest of the way to get it out. But
yeah, and something else I've really found too, just lately, is I think we see so many brands focusing on that personalization element. And I don't know if you all saw, but Meta is working on, or they announced that generative AI for advertisers in general. So I think that AI is just going to revolutionize the marketing and advertising industry by enabling that hyper personalization, where you can really do that end-to-end marketing in terms of a personalization element, because now you're going to have certain attributes that you're already targeting. You're going to have that retargeting element, and then you're going to have like, all right, it's going to crop this image for you. It's going to add this headline. It's going to A/B test this, where, like you said, Andrea, it's just helping you essentially reach your customers in a more efficient way. So I love I just love seeing the new announcements every single day and every single week,
I
because
know, it's so exciting, isn't it? I mean, earlier we were just playing with Photoshop and the generative AI that they've added, and just every day it's something new. And I mean, people have a choice, right? You can look at it as like, this is great, this is a tool, now we can do more in less time. And to me, that seems really great, right? Don't you want to do your job in less time and then have more time to do other things?
yeah.
Or you can be part of the group that's fearing it or thinking it's going to take all the jobs, and
Mhm.
we're choosing to be on the other side of like adopting it and being on board with it and using it to our advantage. So because
Right.
there's a lot of advantages to it, as we've seen just in this little example that you have shown.
Yep.
So yeah, it's amazing.
And like you said, I think I've actually had this conversation with so many people, when I think once you get over the fear of like, oh my gosh, it's going to take my job, and just going back to that human element, I said this, and I will emphasize this over and over again, just to people, like the humans still, we as humans have that creative element, and we're always going to be creative people. So I think that that's where AI does obviously have some creativity to it, but it's based on like the humans input, and it's aiding us in that way, but we're always going to have that additional critical thinking in terms of creativity, being able to push out things. And then something else that I found is just, like you said, it's enabling us to work faster and more efficiently at our jobs, where we can really focus on like the bigger picture strategy, especially where you're not wasting your time
Mhm.
writing those social media captions or writing that email, where you're really able to put things on autopilot and focus on the bigger picture and ultimately get more work done for, the good of what you're trying to accomplish, versus just wasting time on small tasks throughout the day. So I found that to be
Right.
really helpful in that way.
Yeah, totally agree.
And
I was,
do you,
oh, sorry.
sorry, go ahead, Katie.
No, I was just curious. Earlier you mentioned that you did testing between the AI written copy and the copywriter's copy. And I was curious what the results were when you guys tested that.
Yeah, what's funny is we actually saw increased performance when we used AI's copy in our ads, but we saw better results from normal copywriting or from human written copy on our organic content. But I thought that was really interesting because I think, like humans are consuming that organic content on a daily basis. So we were like able to do more of that storytelling organically, but from an ad perspective, like I said, just even being able to generate headlines where you're like, oh, I would have never thought of that, where that was really successful for us. We saw like a lot more clicks, a lot more conversions in general. We actually tested it with our influencer marketing, and we've had a really high ROI on that in general. So just all around from an ad perspective, we saw it perform really well there.
Interesting. Yeah, because there's like that click or the quick sort of ad, right? And that's what I see ads as. It's just to get their attention, to get them in the
Absolutely.
door. And then you can give them the longer story, right? Which is where that other copy comes into play. So that's interesting that you actually tested it and saw those results. So
Yep.
Well, I'm curious then, what did you do for influencer marketing? Is it just the copy that you were using in the messaging there?
So yeah, we would use the copy, but then also this is really interesting, a use case. Like I said, I've used it for so many different things, but we would have certain influencer personas that we would want to, we would have certain personas that we would want to target in general from like a entrepreneur perspective. So maybe it was like a sole entrepreneur, maybe it was somebody with who had like multiple LLCs and were starting multiple businesses. And we would actually use AI to be like, okay, these are the 5 personas that we're targeting. What are some creative briefs that this person would be interested in general? And then that would really help us from a creative perspective, where we would tailor our creative briefs based on the attributes that we knew our personas would be interested in general. So for example, like a Gen Z is going to care about a 7 to 10 second video versus you might get like, boomer's attention for 30 seconds. So it was really helping in like the actual creative element of working with those influencers and how we wrote their briefs and for them to film.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, it's an excellent research tool.
Yeah, I recently actually worked on a brand book, and it just helped me so much with the tone and voice, where the founder knew exactly, what his messaging was, what he wanted to, his business goals in general, but he was like, I don't know who's going to be interested in this product. So I actually used it like, okay, these are the people I want to reach. Help me with my tone and voice. Like, what should we be known as? And it was really helpful in that element too, where, like you said, you're not copying and pasting it and you're adjusting it based on what you want the company to be or what your vision is, but it really helps in building out like even certain words where you're like, oh, I never thought of that, but that could definitely work from a tone and voice perspective.
Definitely.
Are you utilizing any other AI for SEO, or is it mainly just ChatGPT and using Answer the Public? And
Yep, I've mainly just been using ChatGPT and Answer the Public. Like I said, I've started to mess around with Bard. I actually been using Bard lately. I found it to be really helpful with carousel content on social media. So for example, I'll give it a topic and be like, write out what should be on my carousel, and it'll give me, those like point by point. And I love the evolution of it, where it's like, all right, slide 1 to slide 10, here you go, however long you want it to be. But really helping with that content and the flow. And I think that that's sometimes where just as a social marketer myself, where I'll get tripped up, I'll think too much into it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, we only need to focus on this for this slide, we only need to focus on this, where it really helps me, I think, keep like streamlined thinking, be like, okay, I don't have to overthink this. So it's been really helpful in that
And that's
sense.
where the time savings is, right? Getting
Yeah.
out of our own way.
Hard, I found like just very effective in that sense, versus like ChatGPT will, it'll help sometimes with the carousel content, like general ideas, but Bard has been very specific and actual, carousel creation.
I feel like it's more big picture on what it spits out to you rather than just like, here's some results. They're like, here's some results, but their results all relate to each other, like they're considering them as a whole or how one relates to the other a little bit more.
Yeah,
And maybe
absolutely.
that's just like the Google story. I don't know, but.
And my friend works for Microsoft, and she's literally working on AI, and Copilot is just like her life right now, which is so, I think we all dread the PowerPoints and analyzing the graphs and adding in the Excel charts and all that stuff. And it's just, it's a game changer, she's like going to change the way people work and people present, and you're putting in your data. Or like for me, I'm a very content minded person. I don't love working with Excel, where it's like, hey, I have all this data and I need you to analyze it and pull out insights, and then this is what I want to focus on. So it's making you better at your job, and you're doing your job more effectively, because then you have that data right at your hands, where you can really, like I said, analyze it and optimize it, which I think is most important to really growing and changing how you want to do things. So
yeah, we were watching the Microsoft Live event. Was that yesterday, the day before, and seeing all the Copilot and all the different things, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah, so it's very exciting. Yeah, our day is going to look a lot different, and I'm here for it. So,
yep, for sure. And sales outreach, like there's so many things. Like I've done outreach emails. Like I said, I'm doing a lot of marketing for a product right now, and just helping me even write those emails where it doesn't sound super salesy, but it sounds, very authentic. And I think it's just really helpful with that type of stuff, where you're used to speaking in one type of way when you're doing things yourself, but it just gives you other ideas. And I've even used it for, cover letters, and like fixing up my resume. I've been like, hey, rewrite these bullet points to make them sound, more, make them sound better, essentially. Or here are my achievements, can you help me with some resume bullet points? So just everything.
I just did that same thing for someone, the cover letter. And then I also took the job listing and I put it in there, and I said, okay, write a paragraph summary of the ideal candidate for this position. And then I took that and gave it to the person, and I'm like, here you go. Here's all the points you want to cover, and here's what you should write. But of course, make it about you, and don't put the things in there that aren't true, but like, here's what you need to write about. And I'm like, that's like a minute of work. I just
exactly.
So
Yeah, and I mean, even the same thing with interviews where you can put, like you said, putting in the job description and then being like, hey, write me 10 hard questions that a hiring manager might ask versus a recruiter, which I think it's so interesting that even it'll like personalize it. Like, okay, a recruiter's going to probably ask you this based on this job description, but the hiring manager is going to ask you this, where it really pulls out like from the job description what those certain people would care about. So I've just found it to be mind blowing in that aspect. And I've been kind of stuck on that side of TikTok as well, where I get like the recruiter TikToks and the, hiring managers where they're like, here's how to use Chat GPT, or here's how to use AI in general to nail your interview. And it's just so interesting because you said, it gives you those bullet points you maybe didn't think about. You can personalize it to yourself and it really does help you prepare. So I've just found it to be all around so beneficial in that way as well.
great.
Well, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.